Planning meeting, and we have got 3 items on the agenda to discuss today. But firstly, do we have any apologies for absence?
I do have an apology from Councillor Cunningham, Chair.
Thanks very much. Do we have any declarations of interest?
No.
Nope. Hold on a second, just to get the right paper. Yes, we have 3.
Sorry, Councillor McLean, it's just, I'm not sure of the agenda, but I'm only taking part in one of the items. No, it'll be one of the items today, but it might be the first one now. It's just the Eaglesham one. Right, okay, thank you.
Thanks. What we're going to do today is, because there are 3, the first one we are going to do last, because I wasn't at the meeting, neither was Councillor Ireland at the meeting, so we'll start off with the first one, which is on, I think it's 17. It's on page 13, and it is for full planning permission reference number 2024/0168/TP, and it's for construction and operation of a 40 megawatt battery energy storage facility, together with associated infrastructure, substation, security fencing, CCTV, security lighting and landscapes. And I'll pass over to Mr Scott to go through the application with us.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, application 2024-0168 for the construction and operation of a 40 megawatt battery energy storage facility with associated infrastructure, etc., etc. The site lies in the Greenbelt to the east of Glasgow Road, immediately south of its junction with the GSO at the Belcraig roundabout. Now, on page 13 of your papers, you'll see there were various consultations carried out and responses received from West of Scotland Archaeology Service, the Council's Road Service, Environmental Health, SEPA, Scottish Water and Scotland Gas Networks. They had no objections from consultees, subject to various conditions to be attached to any consent granted. SEPA indicate the application falls below the threshold for which to provide advice and refers the developer to their standing advice. Scottish Water state there is no wastewater infrastructure in the area, and that private treatment options, if required, would need to be used. Nature Scot and SP Energy Networks did not respond. Now, on page 13 and 14 of the papers, it refers to the objections. Now, the report of handling refers to 251 objections. There are, in fact, now one more, as a further individual objected following the completion of the report of handling. That person did not raise any new issues that are not referred to in the papers, and page 13 and 14 list the points of objection, but the most common points raised were impact on the character of the Greenbelt, visual impact, impact on road safety, contrary to development plan, impact on the Eaglesham Conservation Area, residential amenity, and health and safety, including fire risk. Now, a further person wrote an objection, again following the preparation of the report of handling. This person had already objected, so that didn't increase the tally, and that person's further representation referred to loss of access, inaccuracies and shortcomings in the visualisations, technical errors and shortcomings in the biodiversity enhancement and management plan, and the premises would not comply with the health and safety at work regulations. And that's a summary, and the committee clerk passed that objection to you, so you should be able to review that. A second further rep from that same person was received yesterday, and I mention that because you were all copied in. Now, that was received after the papers were published, and the Planning Service does not normally accept representations at that point, and the Planning Service has not had a chance to look at that objection. The following supporting reports have been submitted: a planning design and access statement, a flood risk assessment, historic environment impact assessment, landscape and visual appraisal, noise impact assessment, ecological appraisal, Statement of community involvement, that's a statement of the pre-application carried out by the applicant. Transport statement, community wealth building plan, outline battery safety management plan, biodiversity enhancement management plan, and a benefits overview. And this is a major application under the hierarchy of development regs 2009, hence why it's before the committee for determination. So page 16 sets out an overview of the site. It's a land to the south of the A726 Glasgow Southern Orbital Road and to the east of the B767 Glasgow Road. In the green belt, 75 metres south of the junction of those two roads at the Belcraig roundabout. A high pressure gas main runs across the southern part of the site, and overhead high voltage power line traverses the northern part of the site. The closest residential properties lie opposite the site on Glasgow Road at New Borland, New Borland Mill and Low Borland, and further dwellings lie approximately 390 metres to the north beyond the GSO at Low Borland Way, and to the south at Alexander Avenue, Craigbank Grove and Craigbank Crescent in Eaglesham. Plan permission sought for the construction and operation of the 40 megawatt battery storage facility with its associated infrastructure, all of which are included in the application and in the supporting visuals. The purpose of the development is to store surplus energy from the grid in batteries and return it to the grid when it is required. It consists of containerised units to house the battery energy storage systems, shortened as BESS, and the associated equipment. Each container has the appearance of a standard ISO shipping container and will be soundproof. They're arranged in 4 banks, each bank containing 4 BESS units and 2 PCS units. That's a power conversion system. The proposal also includes transformers, high voltage switchgear, a control cabinet, a water tank and control room, and 3 on-site car parking spaces. And again, all of those aspects are included in the plans and in the visuals. The equipment itself is proposed to be located in a compound enclosed by a 2.4 metre high fence, and 3 infrared pole-mounted cameras will be positioned within the site, and each pole will also support motion-activated floodlights. The applicant proposes the compound will be screened by native planting. The site is proposed to be accessed from Glasgow Road via a new priority T-junction 55 metres north of the existing field access. And the applicant indicates the facility will be temporary for a period of 40 years, after which time the facility will be decommissioned and the site returned to its former condition or its current condition. Now, pages 19 to 24 of the papers contain an assessment for proposal against the relevant policies in National Planning Framework 4 and adopted East Renfrewshire Local Development Plan 2, and the main determining issues. Having regard to the proposed development, the site and development plan, and the applicant's supporting statements, the main issues are the principal proposed development at this location, visual impact, impact on residential amenity including noise output, public road safety, impact on biodiversity and biodiversity net gain, impact on the adjacent list of buildings, flooding and impact on soils. Now, I'm not going to go through all of those in the presentation because they're all outlined in the report of handling, but I think in terms of the principle it's important to say that the site lies in the green belt and therefore is assessed against policy 8 of NPF4 and policy D3 of LDP2. Policy 8 of NPF4 supports development for essential infrastructure and renewable energy projects in the green belt, provided the following requirements are met. Reasons as to why the green belt location is required and why it can't be located out with the green belt. That the purpose of the green belt is not undermined. That the proposal is compatible with the surrounding established countryside and the landscape character. That it's been designed to ensure it is of appropriate scale, massing and external appearance and uses materials that minimise visual impact. And that there will be no long-term significant impacts on the environmental quality of the green belt. And similarly, policy D3 of LDP2 provides that renewable energy infrastructure has a site-specific and operational need for a rural location, and it will be supported where there are no significant landscape or visual impacts in the green belt. In terms of need, the applicant has indicated that the UK is legally bound by the Climate Change Act 2008 to cut greenhouse gas emissions by 80% by 2050 compared to 1990 levels. And it's also committed to reach its net zero emissions during the second half of the 21st century. Proposed development provides a means of allowing energy generated by renewable means to be stored at times of low demand and exported back to the grid at times of higher demand or when renewable sources are not available. The applicant states the development would contribute towards meeting those targets and balancing the network without the need to rely on non-renewable sources. In terms of its locational requirements, the applicant has advised in their planning, design and access statement that battery storage systems must be located within close proximity to a viable grid connection, which is a substation or an overhead line. And the applicant advises that the site was chosen due to its viable proximity to the Giffnock substation. And given the foregoing principal development, that this particular location is deemed acceptable in terms of development plan. Now, pages 20-24 set out a further assessment on the determining issues, but I won't go into those here, but you'll have read them in the papers. Excuse me. Pages 24 and 25 provide comment on the points of objection not addressed under the policy assessment. And page 25 recommends applications approved, subject to conditions set out on pages 25 to 29. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr Scott. Can I open up to the committee for questions, please? Councillor Morrison.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you, Mr Scott, for the presentation. I have some concerns about this development. I was hoping to get some further information on. Can I clarify, first of all, that this is indeed located within designated Greenbelt? So yes, that is the case. Okay. So the two relevant policies for Greenbelt development is National Planning Framework 4, Policy 8, where it is stated that there will be a positive consideration given to projects for renewable energy generation. And my concern with this project is looking at the face of it. Bear in mind, I'm not a technical expert, I'm on the planning committee. There's no generation of energy actually involved in this project, and the fact that it's being fed from the grid, the national grid, and Giffnock substation, means that the energy which is being fed into the batteries is not necessarily from renewable sources. It will be coming from whatever energy mix is in the grid. So from that point of view, I'm just questioning how much of a positive contribution this project would make to the renewable energy solutions and the projects to tackle climate change, which I think all committee members would be keen to see. This is further reinforced with our own local development plan 2, policy D3, which states that renewable energy projects and electricity grid connections that have a site-specific and operational need for that location should be considered. But I'm not entirely sure if this site is specifically required. Could you clarify if that is the case? Thank you.
Yes. In terms of it being, you're right, it doesn't generate energy, but the applicant has advised that it, as we move towards using more and more renewable sources, there needs to be a means of having that power when, for example, the wind isn't blowing or that source isn't available. So battery storage systems are becoming more and more popular throughout Scotland. I'm not advocating them, I'm just saying that obviously this is assessment against this proposal against policy. But the applicant's indication is that and the general consensus is that these are essential for the balanced operation of renewable sources. But it doesn't itself generate power. It takes it off the grid and it puts it back out when it's required.
Thank you for that explanation. That does help clarify what the purpose of the project is. But is there any site-specific requirement for that location?
The applicant has advised that it's in a viable proximity to the Giffnock substation. Now the committee has to assess the application before it, and we can't, and the planning service can't direct to alternative sites. But in this case, the applicant has chosen this site because they advise it has a viable proximity to the Giffnock substation. As you go further away from the substation, the effectiveness declines, I understand.
Thank you very much, Mr. Scott. I mean, bear in mind the geography of the location, the outskirts of Eaglesham to the centre of Giffnock, that would imply quite a wide radius of potential sites which would be viable in that case. So that's just a point for noting, really, for the committee. The final concern I have is with regards page 23, fire risk, where it is noted that a number of representations, and there have been a number of representations in this application, regarding the safe operation of the site and the risk of fire from lithium-ion batteries. It does state that it's not a material consideration for the planning committee. I think it is, however, a consideration. And I was just wondering how that complies with the National Planning Framework 4 Policy 23, which is specifically on health and safety, because one would assume that a heightened risk of fire would be a health and safety consideration. So I was just wondering how those two statements are compatible.
In terms of making an assessment of the finished development, we would be entitled to expect it's run safely, and therefore, in itself, it wouldn't be a fire. It wouldn't be a health risk. I mean, but we can't control if something happened to it, or if like any development, things can go wrong. But in this case, we're assessing the finished development against the LDP2 and NPF4. So, yeah.
I'm sure you'll understand the reason why elected members would be scrutinising that very closely. So I thank you for your responses. I think, Chair, that someone else should have a go. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Morrison. Anybody? Councillor Ireland.
Thank you very much, Chair. I've got several questions on this. I do find myself an advocate for these. I realise how essential they are for renewable energy as we move away from fossil fuels. So I find myself in that position. Doesn't stop me having a lot of questions though today, so if you could bear with me. My understanding of National Planning Framework 4 is that it's infrastructure and energy generation. So does this come under the infrastructure label of that part of National Planning Framework 4? It just says development for essential infrastructure and renewable energy developments. So is that where we're seeing this today? Is coming under infrastructure? I do have other questions, but I thought I'd...
Yes, I'm sure. Yeah, it could be looked at that way. Yes.
Okay. My colleague Councillor Morrison has touched on the site location. I was curious as to whether the applicant had provided. Sometimes we see when these applications come before us, and it's site specific, the evidence of other sites that have been considered. Has the applicant put forward anything to suggest that other sites have been considered and why they have been discounted? Sometimes we have seen that. I think it was Clarkston. There was shop units, and there was a huge body of evidence about why that had been chosen, that specific site, and the huge report actually. So have they provided anything on additional sites?
Not that we're aware of, no. No.
Okay, no, thank you very much. Got another couple of questions, Chair. One that I do need to give consideration to on this is, I've taken a note here, it was the information that was provided on the screening and the planting. I think that's crucial here. You need to correct me if I read this wrong. It's suggested in the report of handling, but again, correct me if I'm wrong on this, that there was going to be quite low level planting put in, but that over 15 years that would grow up. I would want to see something now, and certainly not in 15 years. So is that covered in the report handling, or is that something that can be dealt with under the conditions that are applied to this?
I'm not sure if you've seen the visuals. We'll have them here if you wanted to see them. But yeah, you're right. The applicant proposed planting around the edge of the compound, and at year one, the visuals show you can see the compound and the fence. It's not really hidden. But after, I think it was year 15, it was high and it was high enough up. So your question is, could this be provided straight away? Obviously, if you're planting native species, they have to be planted at a certain stage and allowed to grow.
Okay.
But there may be scope for planting something heavier standard that might provide a more immediate screening. But we have a landscaping condition.
Yes.
If you're minded to approve the application, that could be changed to sort of specify a particular standard or height of screening to go in. As I say, I'm not too sure. The applicant has given us a proposal, and I'm sure if it was possible to do it or feasible to do it higher to start with, we may have done that, but that could be explored if you wanted us to explore that, yeah.
For me personally, putting anything in at that level, and I understand things need to bed in and allow them to grow, but if at year 15, it's a long time. I really would need something that is going to provide that degree of screening much earlier than 15 years. I know there'll be something 5 years, 10 years, but I know that was specifically mentioned, so that's where I was feeling a little bit uncomfortable and wanted that covered somehow in a condition. I do have another couple of questions if the Chair would. I came across in one of and you mentioned it, it was the benefits overview report that the applicant provided. In that, there was mention of a community fund being put in place to provide benefits for the local area. Do you have any information on what form that community fund would take? Because I don't see any information, and I've just got one question after that.
No, we could certainly go back to the applicant and ask for that information, but I don't have that offhand, no.
I think that would be critical, because I would like to know how much that fund was going to be, what if it was a percentage or if it was a set amount, and who this was going to benefit. Would it benefit local residents? Is it wider across East Renfrewshire? I had questions on that. And then the last question, it was something I picked up from some of the objections. There was something about public transport, and because the applicant's been really quite upfront about there will be disruption during the build phase, but that will level out once the build's complete. But I wanted to ask if there was any mention of disruption to public transport.
Well, the road service has come back and offered no objection on the road safety grounds and transportation grounds.
That was all my questions. Thank you very much.
There is an option so the applicant wants to move the bus stop, so that's also been included in the assessment as well.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Ireland. Do we have any more questions from anybody? Councillor Edlin.
I have quite a bit of concerns about this proposal, and I'm looking at, and most of them have been raised by Councillors Ireland and Morrison, but for example, during the construction of this site, there's only 3 car parking places available for such a massive proposal. Where are the cars going to be parked for the construction workers and the trucks moving whatever they move in construction without causing massive disruption? I mean, that is a huge concern to me. You mentioned it's temporary for 40 years. I mean, who's ever heard of something temporary for 40 years? That's beyond most of the lifetimes of many of the people here, including myself. I'll go through some of the things I've said. Most of them are on page 17 of my computer, so I've got it back up. Page 17 of the policies. If you look at policy 8, policy 11, this is a storage facility for probably energy that's not renewable. So you're suggesting it's renewable and green compliant, but the energy that's being stored there is probably, majority of it is not renewable. So that's a fallacy. And I mean, there's a risk of fire, which lithium-ion batteries are hugely inflammable. They're always hearing stories and planes of them exploding on computers and things, and you're putting this massive things in a beautiful village, in the periphery of a village, and they can be exploded. It creates a huge risk. I mean, there's all these things are very vague, and I think some Councillor Ireland asked about it being, is this infrastructure, and you said it could be. That's a very vague answer. Either it is or it isn't. So I have questions about that, and there's policy 14, improvement of the quality of life. I mean, what quality of life is going to be improved in the area with this monstrosity being built in a beautiful area? I don't see it. Although I can understand the importance of having essential infrastructure put in, there are more things that go against this proposal than for it that I can see. So that's just some of the things I've written down. I don't want to. I'm sure there are others that my colleagues will pick up, but these questions sort of remain to be answered to me in a satisfactory way that convinces me that this should be approved.
Okay, I think your first question was about the car parking. There are 3 car parking spaces provided in the site. That's for the operation of the site. Now, I think the applicant indicated that during the site's operation, in terms of maintenance and landscaping, you're looking about 10 to 20 vehicle movements per annum. So that was a very low number. So that's for people coming to the site to maintain the site, to maintain the landscape, etc. That's the 3 car parking spaces. The road service.
Can I come back?
Yeah,
That's not. I mean, you're telling me that they only need 3 parking spaces to build that huge proposal with all that infrastructure going in, all the land being moved, and all the stuff all the foundations going in, and all the stuff going in. You only need 3 parking places?
No, the road service has asked us to ensure that there is scope for that. So, condition 8 of the proposed consent on page 27 of the papers, you'll have seen outlines a condition for a temporary car parking provision during construction phase. So there will be details, if the application were to be approved, there will be details submitted via condition to provide details of the construction car parking on the site. Now that would then be removed after the site was completed, and it would be returned to its grass or landscaped. So no, that issue was assessed. Sorry, your second question, do you remember?
I didn't take it. Going through my notes.
Sorry. Oh, yeah, temporary. Yes, it's temporary for 40 years. I mean, that is a fact. That's what the applicant has asked for. So that is a fact. That's what they're asking for. I can't really comment on that. Whether that's.
Is there a classification of temporary?
No, temporary is just not permanent. So it's temporary.
It could be a 100-year proposal, and it could still be temporary.
I've never come across anything of that nature.
No, I mean, I've never come across a 40-year temporary proposal either. So, you know, how long's a piece of string?
Well, for example, wind turbine applications, wind turbines are generally 30, 40 years. They were 20, but because of ongoing improvements, they can become longer and longer. So we do condition temporary consents for things that are fairly long, but this is temporary 40 years. That's what the applicant's applying for. Yes, infrastructure, it is. Mm-hmm.
You're now saying not maybe, it is definitely infrastructure.
It is. I think Councillor Ireland was asking, could it be construed as, and I said, yes, it could be, but it is. Semantics, but yes, it's infrastructure.
No, I don't see it as semantics. If it's infrastructure, it's very important. If it's not infrastructure, the value becomes more questionable. So it's not semantics.
I think, Councillor, you were concerned about the health and safety impacts and quality of life.
Yes, and the fire risk.
I think, yeah, fire risk and sort of health and safety issues relating to it weren't material planning issues. In this case, because we're assessing the development as it would be operated safely. So,
it's not a matter of operating safely. Lithium-ion batteries have an inherent risk of fire. You can't deny that. Now, this is cited near the village of Eaglesham, a child could be walking down that road or on his bike and the thing explodes. I mean, there is a risk. Unless you can tell me otherwise.
All I can say is that that risk is not a material planning issue.
Thank you. I'll go to Provost Montague first. She has a number of questions. Provost Montague.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm just comparing. This is quite a substantial application, and given that we did a site visit when it was 14 objections at the last planning application and it's now on this meeting's agenda, I'm just asking or suggesting that we do a site visit to this site. It's been voiced, well, concern has been voiced about its position, and we know from our own local knowledge there's very few, there's not much land available at all, and this, to my knowledge, is out in the periphery of our area. But I think it would be helpful to have a site visit, so that's what I'm proposing.
Thank you, Provost. I'm not sure that a site visit's actually necessary at this time. I think we have all the information that we need at this juncture. Where there is the plans there's everything we need to see, which are on the papers, which are actually on the planning portal if we need to see them, and we'll have looked quite in depth at them on there. So unless anyone else would like a site visit, I don't really see it as necessary.
Reflecting on that, Chair, I don't think a site visit is necessary in this case. I appreciate one of the cases in today's agenda, the third item, is a revisitation of an application following a site visit, but that's where the essence of the concern was around the aesthetic impact of the development on the streetscape, whereas I think this is a very different set of circumstances, so I don't see the need for a site visit. I would feel comfortable making the decision today. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have a vote on this, or?
So yeah, Chair, there's a motion that's been seconded by another councillor, so it does stand as a competent motion and has to be considered as part of the item. If other members are otherwise minded and want to move something else in terms of the recommendations in the report, or to decline planning permission, etc., that would have to be raised as another formal motion and seconded.
Okay, thank you. Well, I would raise a motion that we don't actually have a site visit. We discussed this today. Does anyone like to second it? Councillor Morrison second it.
So if we want to take a vote on this specific issue now, obviously we have before us a motion by Provost Montague that we defer consideration of this item in lieu of a site visit take place in the future, seconded by Councillor Ireland. And Councillor McLean, seconded by Councillor Morrison, has moved that we continue with consideration of this item and bring it to a conclusion in this meeting. So can I have, well actually we have members online, so I'll actually go to the roll call. Obviously Councillor Cunningham's not present, so I will say that the motion before you is Provost Montague's motion, and the amendment is the proposal by Councillor McLean to continue. So those in favour of Provost Montague's motion, please say motion when called upon. Those in favour of Councillor McLean's amendment, please say amendment when called upon. So first of all, can I have, we'll start as I can see you, Councillor Lundy.
Motion.
Provost Montague.
Motion.
Councillor Ireland.
Motion.
Councillor Morrison.
Amendment.
Councillor Edlin.
Amendment.
Councillor McLean.
Amendment.
So councillors, I have a tie of 3-3, therefore the Chair would exercise his cast and vote. Do you wish to do so, Chair?
Yes, amendment.
Therefore, by the Chair's cast and vote, the amendment is carried and we will not have a site visit. The item will continue to be considered today.
Provost Montague, have you your hand up?
Yes, it's just to continue then. If you're going to continue, it's just to make another point. The first point was that this, to me, is in the periphery of our area. It's out of the way. We know there's not much land. The other point is this is battery storage. So as far as my understanding is that it does store power for future use. So in that way, it's environmentally not just friendly, but helpful. And so my inclination is for the officer's recommendation to approve to be supported.
Thank you, Provost. I've got a number of points I would quite like to raise regarding this application. Again, as has been mentioned before, I think on the report of handling there is, I mentioned 15 times of renewable energy. We cannot tell if this is renewable energy or not because it's coming from a substation which all the power is fed into. We still have nuclear power stations in Scotland. There's power getting generated by that, so we have no way of knowing if this is a renewable energy or not, which I can't comment on because we don't know. Another one of the points I've got is NPF 4 Policy 8 in the Greenbelt section states reasons to be provided as to why a Greenbelt location is essential and why it cannot be located on an alternative site out with the Greenbelt. The applicant has made no mention of alternative sites on this, and that's in the policy in NPF 4 that it should have, and they haven't. The other questions I've got is the substation, where they mention it's the nearest, or it's the most, they want to go to Giffnock. There is a substation a mile away, right next door to my house. There is a substation in Busby, there is a substation in Clarkson. They have not mentioned why it is necessary to go to Giffnock. I have no idea why this is. And going through all the documents on the planning portal, the applicant states there has been one fire since 2020. I've actually looked up this in some depth. There have actually, on a government website, there has actually been 30 fires on these battery storage farms since 2017. So, you know, this one fire since 2020, it may well be, but there's actually been 30 altogether. I just, you know, there's kind of too many. For example, you're talking about the construction, day one of construction, when all the heavy machinery comes, where are the cars going to park? Where are they going to go? They will sit on the main road or on the pavement because there is nowhere parking near that place at all. They cannot park anywhere apart from on the road. That be day one. Where are these traffic? Where's this traffic going to go? Where are these parked cars going to go? If you look at the site at the very bottom, the top right hand, if you're looking at it, there's going to be a SUDS there. Now, only the battery element of that will be fenced off. The rest of the area will be open. Now, we have big problems in Eaglesham in the summer with kids going to the local reservoir. That's going to be open and it won't really be seen from the road. We could have the same problems there potentially with this open SUDS area. And they mentioned kind of visual impact of planting trees in the winter. In the winter, there's no foliage in the trees, so it'll be seen from everywhere, unless they plant kind of fir trees, which I don't see they're going to do. There is also a part, I mean, obviously this very extensive paper that came through today. There's on the second page, from Scottish Gas Assets Engineering, we are concerned that this proposed installation has the potential to induce currents and voltage onto our pipeline, which could result in pipeline damage. This is a known threat. You know, there's a lot more to go into this. I could go into it in depth, but to me, this is nowhere near going in the right place. There are so many objections you could bring up to this, as this paper has. And I don't understand why they're putting it in this position.
I think the last point you raised about the Scottish Gas Networks, they objected, but that would be removed if the application was approved with a condition which they have asked to be put on, and that would address the issues that they have raised. So that if the application were approved, that condition 11 on page 27 of the papers would that's their condition, and they've said that would address their issues in terms of the interference with the gas pipes. Again, condition 8, prior to work starting, details of a temporary car parking and leading areas to be provided on the site during the construction phase. and phrasing for the provision and removal shall be submitted and approved in writing prior to the work starting. So that issue would address the issue of the construction traffic.
I'm not so sure they want it would.
What else did you raise? Sorry.
Substation, why they're going to Gifford when, if this does go ahead, I mean, there's one a mile away.
Yeah, that's what they've suggested. So yeah, I really
but
couldn't
then
comment why, but that's their suggestion. Yeah.
Sorry, that doesn't address National NPF 4, which states they have to give suitable alternatives to this site and to the substation, which they haven't done. They haven't done at any point. Councillor Lundy, would you like to come in with something?
Yeah, I'd just like to echo the points that you were making, particularly with the number of objections. I'm quite concerned about the flood and water management as well, identified by SEPA as at risk from surface water flooding. How does the SUD plan align with policy 22 of NPF 4? And are there any additional measures that can be put in place to prevent surface water runoff, particularly in the event of heavy rainfall?
Thank you, Councillor Lundy. Mr Scott?
The SUDS pond is designed to attenuate water to reduce risk of flooding. Now, there is part of the site which lies within the SEPA's flood risk maps, but that's not the part of the site that includes the battery storage.
Councillor Morrison?
Thank you very much. It's amazing the powers of Google. I've just been doing some research on the transport classifications of lithium-ion batteries, and according to the UK Government's Vehicle Certification Agency, such batteries are a Class 9 classified dangerous substance, and this is further reinforced with policy UN 3480. So this is an international designation as well. So having established that lithium-ion batteries are hazardous substances, with reference to the National Planning Framework 4, Policy on Health and Safety again, that's Policy 23, it states spatial strategies should maintain appropriate distances between sites with hazardous substances and areas where the public are likely to be present and areas of particular natural sensitivity or interest. So I suppose my question is, would you accept that these batteries are hazardous substances, and how compatible is that with the requirement of NPF4? Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I haven't seen that paper you've referred to, so I couldn't really comment on it at this stage, but we could come back to you on that if you wanted.
I appreciate the offer to come back, but you appreciate we've been asked to make a decision today, and I think that creates sufficient dubiety for me to move that we would reject the application at this time.
If that's an amendment, I will second that. If that's a motion going forward, I'll second that.
Yep, so we have a motion before the committee to refuse planning permission in this instance. Is anyone otherwise minded? Councillor Ireland has her hand up.
I'm otherwise minded. I would move that we accept the planner's recommendation.
Does that motion have a seconder?
Provost Montague?
Yes, thank you. I would second it, but I would also like to add about hazardous substances. I mean, the planners have looked into this, and we deal with hazardous substances when we put either petrol or diesel in our car. It's how it is dealt with and the precautions built in to all of this. And so I think that definitely support second Councillor Ireland's amendment or proposal to approve.
Thank you, Provost. Mr Burke?
So once again, the motion before the committee is by Councillor Morrison, seconded by Councillor McLean, to refuse planning permission, and the amendment proposed by Councillor Ireland, seconded by Provost Montague, is to go with the recommendations of the planners in this case and accept, or grant rather, planning permission. So I'll go again, as I see it, from top to bottom, by roll call, since we have members on Teams. And again, just to be clear, to support Councillor Morrison's motion, please say motion. To support Councillor Ireland's amendment, please say amendment. So starting from the beginning, Councillor Lundy.
Motion.
Provost Montague.
Can I just clarify that the amendment is Councillor Ireland's amendment to grant, so it's amendment.
Thank you. Councillor Ireland.
Amendment.
Councillor Morrison.
Motion.
Councillor Edlin.
Motion.
Councillor McLean.
Motion.
So therefore, councillors, by a vote of 4-2 in favour of the motion is carried, and planning permission refused. Yes, so in terms of the outcome, in order to complete the decision notice, the planners require to have reasons for refusal. Can we outline those?
Yeah, I'm happy to give those. I believe it's contrary to Policy 8 of the National Planning Framework 4, including Policy 23, and also contrary to our own Policy D3 and Local Development Plan 2.
Thanks for that, Councillor Morrison. I may clarify that with you for the minute, just in the aftermath of the meeting, if you don't mind.
Thank you, Mr Burke. We'll now move on to the next one on the agenda, but Councillor Ireland is leaving at this point. Thanks for your attendance, Councillor Ireland. The next one on our list is reference 2024/0372/TP. That is full planning permission for the installation of a tree house in rear of garden at 644 Clarkson Road, Netherley. Pass over to Mr Scott to go through it.
The visuals for it, just a wee second. Yeah. Where's she gone?
Clean.
It's not sharing, it should be sharing.
Click stop sharing and try again.
There it is, yeah.
That's it now.
Okay. Yes, okay. Sorry about that. This is for 2024/0372, installation of a tree house in the rear garden at 644 Clarkson Road, Netherley, and it's retrospective with amendments. So it's been constructed, as you can see.
Yeah.
Page 33 of the papers outline 15 objections. You'll note the report of handling refers to 10. Again, this is because further objections were received after the report was finalised and drafted. No new matters were raised that have not been mentioned in the report of handling. And those points that are mentioned are loss of privacy, overlooking, unauthorised works, the fact that a previous application was withdrawn, safety issues, and that the matter has been referred to the Scottish Public Services Ombudsman. This is a local application under the hierarchy of development regs, and it's before you because more than 10 objections have been received. The application site is a semi-detached two-storey property, and it lies on the west side of Clarkson Road, Netherlee. And again, retrospective planning permission sought for the erection of a timber tree house in the rear garden, which you can see in front of you, and includes amendments that are proposed to mitigate overlooking, which are not shown, which are not been put in place yet. Page 34 contains an assessment proposal against the development plan. And those policies require that development should not result in a significant loss of character or amenity to the area, and that the overlooking should be a concern or should be assessed. Following assessment, the proposal is compliant with relevant policies, and page 34 and 35 provide comment on the points of objection which are not addressed under the policy assessment, and page 35 recommends the application is approved, subject to conditions requiring the applicant to undertake the proposed amendments within the set timescales.
Thank you, Mr Scott. Can I open up to the panel for any comments? Nobody? Councillor Lundy?
I suppose the only reason that I do have concerns is the number of representations and for loss of privacy, etc. The people that are continuing to object clearly aren't satisfied that the plans will resolve the issues. So that would be my only reason for having some thoughts about the officer's decision.
Thank you, Councillor Lundy. Mr Scott?
My advice is that the proposed amendments would address overlooking.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Morrison?
Thank you very much. That was my reading of it too, Mr Scott, is that this would deal with the concerns. I suppose my question is, when the representations were made, had your recommendations been published or made known at that point in time? So would the people making representations know what the proposed solution would be? I suppose is the question.
Well, no, when they objected, the report wouldn't have been written, so they would object when the application was first put to us, and the proposed amendments are not in place yet. But they are shown on the papers on the proposed drawings, so they may be aware of them, but they may continue to object. But my view is that they would address any overlooking.
Thank you very much. I think in light of the point Councillor Lundy made, that it may be worth reflecting upon that the representations were made on the basis of not knowing what the proposed amendments would be, and actually that they were not objecting to leaving the structure as it currently is. And if we approved this today, it would be on the basis of the two recommendations. So I don't know what others have to say, but at the moment I'm minded to support the officers in this.
Thank you, Chair. Is anyone otherwise minded? Provost Montague?
Yes, thank you very much. I wonder if Mr Scott could, looking at the photograph of the tree house, what difference would it make to that with the amendments, the modifications that have been put forward? What difference would it make to that photograph?
Thank you, Provost. You see where the door is on the front, behind that branch?
Yeah.
Well, that's to be blocked up, and a new door will get formed on the side, and a screen will come out from that door so there's Margaret Ann, just where the mouse is, where the cursor is there. Sorry, it's slow. Just at this point here, on that panel would then be a door. In front of that door, 90 degrees, there'd be a screen coming out. So that would be the proposed amendments. That's what the applicant has proposed to do. I can show you a plan, if you like.
Yes, yes, please.
So the door that I showed you is here, being blocked up. The proposed door is here, and the screen is that black line going that way, yeah. And it sits at the back of the garden here, in this corner. So the overlooking would be down towards the south and the north east, which would be mitigated by the proposals.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Is anyone?
Can I continue? Can I continue, please, Chair? Yeah.
Sorry,
So
Provost.
when you say, thank you very much. So when you say the overlooking will be, and you've mentioned some geographical positions, is that into the applicant's open? Then the door would be, so any overlooking would be into their own garden. It wouldn't be into neighbours' gardens. And I'm thinking that in the future, if this was passed with these amendments, if there was damage to the screening, is there condition be included that if there is damage and the screen comes down and it causes overlooking, that they have within a certain time period got to replace that screening so the overlooking doesn't take place at some point in the future?
Yes, Provost. The condition states that the privacy screen should be in place at all times. So if it was to fall down or to be blown down, we could enforce its replacement straight away.
Well, that sounds more reassuring. I'm just thinking the last straw is my garage door was blown off, so these things can be damaged and come down, and it can cause neighbour conflict and upset. I wouldn't like it, you know, for that level of overlooking into my own garden and the privacy there's there. So I always try and take the point of view of how would I like it, and if I wouldn't, then I would not be supportive of it. So if that's the amount of screening so that there is no overlooking, that's what you're telling me. Oh, I'm assured by that then.
Thank you, Provost. If anyone is otherwise minded, I'd like to propose we accept the officer's decision on this, if anyone is otherwise minded. No, we're all quite happy to accept the officer's decision then.
Yep, so the decision of the committee therefore is that the officer's recommendations be gone with there and the planning application be granted as per the conditions laid out in the report.
Thank you very much, Mr. Butt. Moving on to the last one, there will be a small delay because I wasn't present at the site visit, so I have to leave, in which another chair will be appointed. Thanks very much.
Stay where you are. So I do have a proposal before me in terms of discussion prior to the meeting. I understand Provost Montague and Councillors Morrison and Edlin will be present for this, as they were the three members present at the site visit that took place. Now, it had been proposed to me beforehand that Councillor Morrison would look to take the chair. Provost Montague, would you be content with that?
Yes, I was just going to propose it, as we have agreed previously, that we would rotate the chair, and it's Councillor Morrison is next in line to do that. So I would propose Councillor Morrison take the chair. Thanks.
That's perfect. So from those members still present, is there any dissent from that view? No? Then I ask Councillor Morrison to assume the chair.
Okay, thank you very much, and I'm reassured that the Provost is keeping track for the committee. So this is the final item of business in today's agenda. It's application 2024/0118 which is regarding a single-storey front, side and rear extension at 34 Strathview Park, Netherley, including boundary wall and elevated decking. So this item was previously considered by the committee, and we decided that we would go for a site visit. We've had the site visit, and in light of that, I'd like to put it out to committee members if they have any questions or any points that they would like to state. Provost.
Having gone to the site visit and read the report, I would like to move to propose to support the officer's recommendation to grant.
Thank you, and that's been seconded by Councillor Edlin. I have no opposing view, so happy to declare that that's carried. Thank you very much, and that brings us to the end of today's business.